Good morning everyone, welcome back to another episode of Barum Engines on this fine Monday morning. So guys, first job of the day. Got this cylinder head here on the mill, and this is actually its third cut. So I just thought I'd show you. See the centre of the, where the gasket sort of sits around this area. Don't worry, my finger is nowhere near the cutter. You can see there the classic where it's overheated. So when we did a first cut on this, all this area around here was completely black. So not only had it bent that way, it had also bent that way. It just sort of sinks in the middle, and that's what you have. And these days, it's just as bad on the cylinder block a lot of the time. So because these things run steel gaskets, you've got to be very careful to, when you quote or estimate for doing a head gasket job these days, the gaskets are not as forgiving as they used to be, so you just need to make it very aware, make the customer very aware that potentially it could be a complete strip down and a block reface. So if you own a sort of garage, guys, I'm sure you know all about this, but don't leave yourself in that hole there, because once you've took the head off, if you haven't made them aware, could be down to you. So yeah, you can see that's cleaning now, but this is probably about 10-12 thou cut on this. So we just need to make sure that we get the right thickness gasket, if they do different thicknesses at all. But if this cylinder head is for a garage, which I'm not sure whether it is or not, we need to just make them aware how much we've took off it. All right, mate?
All right, mate.
So, big update on the Cosworth that I'm stripping here, mate, today.
All right.
Got a lot to go on about. So, we've stripped the thing, measured everything.
Yep.
Seen what we've got. I've spoke to the customer. The only thing we haven't stripped yet is the cylinder head, but that's fairly standard stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only thing on the cylinder head which would determine anything different, as in work, would be the bucket housings, whether they've scored or worn. You have to either liner or hone out the bucket housings. They all seem to be nice and snug, so there's nothing obvious there, mate. So I suspect it's just a go through, guides, etc.
Yeah.
Birthday on the head. So we'll start with the crank. It's obviously been polished and titivated in the past.
All looks very nice.
All
very
standard
shiny.
journals, so I expect they probably started out with a new crank at some point,
right,
back in the day when this was done. So yeah, if you can see some unusual markings, especially on the centre main.
A bit bluey and yellowy on there.
That's right, yeah, it was sort of on the verge of doing something.
Right.
We've measured that crank, and although it is a thou below bottom limit, which a lot of the time these Cosy cranks are, that's why we never use a standard crank. We always grind it even if we have got a standard crank, because they're generally down on the journals. But you can see the centre main here, look. Now apparently this thing was still running with no known issue, but really? God knows how, because it was, if it didn't sort of show up any symptoms of an issue, then it would have at least scrapped the crank. So that was your main bearing, look.
Bloody hell.
So that is basically what's happened there. It hasn't spun the main.
How has that not spun it?
God knows.
That's weird.
But it's hammered it, and you can see see the material at the side there.
Yeah.
It's literally hammered that main. So I'm suspecting when John puts that crank up, you'll probably find that it's very slightly bent.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be anything major, I wouldn't have thought. Nothing that we can't grind out. So yeah, as I say, measured these journals, and they all sort of measure consistent. I've put the main caps on, torqued them up and measured the housings. And strangely enough, you've got a tolerance on the housings of about 0.8 of a thou. And these are about half a thou tight below bottom limit. Yeah, so we have seen that before, but there's no point doing anything about it until we've got the crank sorted, new bearings in, put it in, torque it up, and do our plastic gauging.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what running clearance we've got. If it's tight, then we know we've got room to line hone the block. Yeah. So that's where we are with that, mate. So at the minute, it's good news because it looks like we can salvage the crank.
Oh, I do.
Okay. Camshafts all look good, albeit standard. They look pretty good.
Yeah.
I suspect this has been running big Larry cams at some point, and it would have been big power, well over 500, I
Yeah.
would say. So the next thing, mate, the block. You can see we've got some nice oil jets in the base there. Now we're going to be using a dry sump kit on this. The customer's ordered it, going to be sending it in.
Nice.
So, so we've got to be fitting that. It come in without a sump, and the crank was already took out of it. So that is that. Now, if we turn the block over, mate, this is where it gets interesting. So I did look at the bores originally, and it looked, initially, when you looked at it, it looked like it had the liners in, like we normally put in, which is fine, standard stuff. But then a little telltale sign of what it had in was around this area here. So where the liners sit in, you can see a gap there.
Yeah.
So we've measured the liners, and they're all over the shop. Right, so I thought, I know what's happened here. I've run the hone down there, down one of the liners, and it's rock hard. So they're Nickersil liners. But what they've done is they bored it out in the past. This is what they used to do.
Yeah.
And made it into almost like a wet liner conversion.
I've never seen one like that. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah,
at all.
I've seen them, but I don't think we've ever had one in here, to be honest. And this is the liner that they use. So this is a ductile iron, I'm guessing. And you can see the only trouble is with the, sorry, not ductile iron, a Nickersil. But you can see once the hard coating wears, it's
Yeah,
gone.
you can see there's a proper lip
There's a big
down the
old
bottom
lip
there.
Yeah, and you can see it's gone all scabby and it just sort of
Yeah, that
flakes
coating's
off.
all coming away, isn't it?
Yeah, so that is knackered. Of course, it's mullered the pistons. The pistons are a Cosworth Racing, but they're a replica of the original.
Ah, right.
You know, the ones with the green Teflon on the side. Once
Aye.
did have. But that's all long since gone. So there's about 6 thou of wear in those liners. So that's had it. I expect this thing has run lean at some point.
Right.
If we get a piston out, you can see all the pistons. All the pistons are
Christ.
proper scored up.
Yeah.
Proper nadgered, mate. And all above these rings here.
Yeah, you can
That
see.
second ring is stuck in there. So, yeah, I expect this thing's run lean. So how it didn't have an issue, I do not know. Probably did.
Probably made a right racket, that thing, didn't it?
Would have thought so. It's had something floating around, obviously, in the bearings, which is probably the remainder of the bores, which have worn away. Standard rods. Bit of play in the small ends, so I suspect we could do something with them rods. Not a problem. But that's that. So, next step, mate. Spoke to him. These liners, we should be ringing Westwood up and getting these things replicated in ductile iron.
Cool.
Okay, so I'll do my measurements. I'll make sure all these housings are good.
Yeah.
And we will, obviously, if they're all good, we should be replicating that. Maybe have to change a couple of measurements to, you know, make them fit better. What I normally do is get on boards, get them finished in standard size.
Yeah.
With about 5 thou left in, so once we press them in, we can then hone the things out.
Ideal.
Back to square one, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only thing is with these, because they've got the hard coating on, what I did notice when they're in the block, right down the bottom, probably the last couple of inches, they were about 2 thou tight, thou and a half, 2 thou tight down the bottom,
right.
in all directions, which is certainly not going to help matters. Whether
Almost
that's
tapered then, I suppose.
No, it wasn't tapered. It was just, it may have been tapered, but I just wondered why they'd left it so tight.
Yeah.
But then when I've took these out and measured these housings, we're about 1 thou and a half, 2 thou interference.
Right.
So these things obviously have just closed up. The advantage is with the ductile iron, we can hone that out once they're in, make sure they're the right size. So that's what we're going to be doing, mate. If we have a look around the top of the block, you can see it's been blowing a gasket like hell.
Yeah.
Now, the long studs, it's got 10 long studs. You've got, these are the old style ones. They've got the, like the machined in diameter in the middle that holds an O-ring. You've got 14 mil on the outer four because the 17 mil would intrude into the oil ways.
Yeah.
And you've got the 17 here, which go on the centre 6. Now, these are the old style. Usually we do away with these and get our Julian Godfrey ones. But because they've machined on the centre 6, further down for the seal groove, we may as well just use these.
I suppose this is like the perfect block to show what the long studding actually looks like, because you can see right in there.
Exactly, yeah. So you can see the lug here, look. That literally, that bit of casting down here that's where it sort of goes. So that would be the lug that they cast in to hold the original thread in the blocks.
So then what you do is drill right through that.
Right through that and down into the base of the block. Bottom. And you can see this stud here, look. See, that screws down there. Now, that is the height that they normally go, these old style studs. And if you look down the base of the block, you can see how much thread's left.
Oh, yeah.
Which isn't enough, really. That's why we do away with them.
That's why you go further and do the other ones,
Yeah, but they've machined deeper for the top groove, and then you can see, look, the stud goes all the way down to the bottom.
Ah, right.
And then we shall go even deeper on this side, because you can see now all this is gone, you see that lug?
Yeah.
Now that is this, it's only these two on the opposite side to the oil jacket, or oil way. And those lugs, if you don't go drill and tap far enough, it will break those lugs off.
Right, and this side's just, well, that's all just flat.
Yeah, that's all flat. So that's why we normally go another 5mm deeper on this side. So yeah, quite interesting, mate. Yeah. The only thing I'm going to do is they're using the old style hex nuts on these, which are those type down there.
Oh yeah.
18mm, and the only problem is with that, you've got a modified socket to go down the hole in the head, which ain't great, mate.
Brilliant.
So we're going to scrap those nuts, and we're going to get the male Torx head nuts, so we can get some good purchase on it.
Yep.
So that's where we are with the Cosy.
It's interesting, that.
Started to clean up a few bits. Just got to send him over a bit of an idea of price, because obviously the liners now are going to make a bit of a difference. You're looking over £1,000 for a set of liners fitted these days. So yeah, it's going to make a bit of a difference, but he seems like he wants to go ahead, mate, so we shall do that. And then that's it, that's what I've been doing today. So what have you been doing?
Carrying on with this, the old EJ25.
Nice. Seen you earlier underneath with a drill and a tap.
Yeah, so probably a lot of people know, but there's so many like M6 threads. Obviously it's all alley.
Yeah.
And this one here for the oil pickup went as I was trying to put it in.
Typical.
Yeah. So and that's also a through hole. So basically I had to turn it upside down and lie underneath it. And yeah, that all went well.
Were you getting there, mate? You've got a bit of a setback on the head gaskets.
Yeah, so because these uprated head studs are so thick, the holes in the head gasket on these centre two aren't big enough to fit the studs through.
I see. So the Victor Ryan's head gaskets we can't use.
Well, they're just the standard ones, but an uprated one.
What was the make of the uprated ones?
Loads of people make them. The ones that were on it were RCM.
Oh, okay.
But I think for mine I've got Fuji Racing or something, I don't know.
Nice.
They do loads of them, but yeah.
So that's all we're waiting for?
Yeah, and then we can get the heads on and start thinking about timing it up.
Yeah. Lovely.
Pretty
so
close
nearly there,
to that, really. Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll stick the water pump on in a minute and yeah.
Sweet.
On its way.
Well done, mate. So for all you people that are sick to death about hearing about the Cosworth guys, I do apologise. But then we do specialise in the YB, don't we? So yeah, this guy here, in some respects, he's lucky. Now, I didn't realise with this until I'd spoke to him this afternoon and got into a conversation with him. I thought he'd bought this car, this engine was in a Sapphire, to put the engine into his Mark 1 Escort. I didn't realise that this engine has actually been running in his Escort for about 2,000 miles. So however long before that this thing was running, we don't know. But he's been running, he had it set up and he's done a couple of thousand miles in it, which amazes me how it did not spin, at least the main. I mean, you've seen these shells in the block. They're hammered out to death. How it didn't spin one of them, grab on the crank and scrap the crank, and even the block. We all know now how much a crank is. You're talking a couple of £1,000. Same again for a block if you can get one. and then it's going to need work. So potentially, at any point, this thing could have caused the guy another 5,000 quid worth of damage. So I suppose, although he's having to have it all done, everything we've got is recoverable, like the crank and the block, although we've got to have new liners, etc. But yeah, it just amazes me how that thing has held on. But these Cossies, it's the same story. Whenever we get them in, we've had it before where they've come in, they're running, and the people say, oh, it's smoking a little bit, or it's starting to breathe, or it's a little bit rattly, I think it needs new tappets. And the thing is absolutely mullered when you get in amongst it. So it amazes me how these, you know, how worn these Cossies can be and still run all right. But there we go, guys. Got the go-ahead on that now. Ordered all the bits, or most of the bits. So as soon as them liners arrive, we can get them things in, get this thing gone, because we have got another Cosworth coming on Wednesday. But that's it, guys. Until Wednesday's video, stay tuned. Probably tomorrow, Isaac and I are going to do one for the second channel. So head over to that. I'll put a link in the description below tonight in this one for our second channel. Stay tuned tomorrow, guys, because we've got some big updates on the kit car. Looking good. But until then, we'll see you in Wednesday's video on this channel. Take care, guys.